Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button and get ready to hit the like button at the end of the video. Really helps me out. So, we're back. Today's deck tech, obviously, we're going back to March of the Machine, and I'm still looking at some of the new cards that are coming out that have caught my eye as the spoilers have appeared. This deck has got a few more than just the Commander in it. We've got a few of the new cards in it, not many because there's the only ones that caught my eye so far, so, things will change once we get the set on MTGO, so yeah, I may go back and update some of these deck techs. We'll see what happens. But today's deck is Shalai and Hallar. One red, green, and white for a 3/3 Angel Elf. Okay, cope with that. And it has a flying and vigilance. Yep, okay, that's fine. But whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, Shalai and Hallar deal that much damage to target opponent. We have got a new +1/+1 commander to build around, everybody, and we want the counters. So let's just look at this for 2 seconds. What we want to try and do is get Shalai and Hallar into play, then start chucking around +1/+1 counters, so we can ping, shock, maybe do more if we're lucky, but mainly ping and shock creatures because of the ways we can double up the counters, and shock our opponents. That's the easy way to do it. We don't have to worry about attacking, we don't have to worry about going for it, although end of the day it's a white, green and red deck. You are going to attack to win the game eventually, but if we can get the extra damage coming through by getting the +1/+1 counters put on creatures, I think we're going to be in a good position. So as usual, today's deck tech looks like this. And since we're still not quite on MTGO yet, I'm using Goldfish to get the deck list out. So let's start off. Obviously, Shalai and Hallar, we know, are going to be the commander for this deck. And then it's really into creatures. Now, I've gone with 30 creatures, which seems a lot. I realise that. And very little ramp, as you can see from over here. Only Soul Ring, Arcane Signet. I suppose you can count the Great Henge, but but it's only really these two I've gone for ramp side of it with artifact side. But the creature count is quite high because I decided I want to include some of the Outlast creatures and some other things to make sure we chuck the +1/+1 counters around so we could actually trigger Shalai and Hallar quite a lot. So a little bit of ramp with Birds of Paradise, and then the first Outlast is Herald of Offenser. Sorry. Whenever you activate the Outlast ability, you get a warrior, which is great, but you get to put +1/+1 counter on it straight away for 2 mana. Yeah. Okay, you've got to wait for the Summoning Sickness to wear off, but it shouldn't be too sad. Progenitor Exarch is one of the new cards that's coming out in March of the Machines, and I quite like to look at this. 1 and XX, and when it enters the battlefield, incubate 3 X times. Now, incubate is a new mechanic if you haven't seen it. Basically, you get a token that comes into play with, in this case, if we pay 3 mana, we get 1 token with 3 +1/+1 counts on it, and all it does. And then at any stage we've got 2 spare mana, we can transform it into a Phyrexian artifact creature that's 0/0, but obviously the +1/+1 counters stay. So the more mana we can put in Progenitor Exarch, the more lots of 2 mana we can pay at some stage to get a whole load of 3/3 +1/+1 creatures. Now, what I will point out, they come into play in the +1. I think, if I've got it right, and I may be wrong on this, I haven't read the rules yet, so if I've got it wrong, let me know in the comments below. I believe when you flip it, the creature gets the +1/+1 counter, so it does trigger Shalai and Hallar, if I'm reading it correctly. But I'm not sure, so we'll have to see. It might be wrong, but anyway, it's still a little bit away against more +1/+1 counters around, and if we can double the +1/+1 counters, all the better for it, but I'm not 100% sure it works like that, so I may be wrong on this, so share with me in the comments, it's fine. Another Outlast creature, we got the Bombkin in, just to make sure everything gets first strike when it's got +1/+1 counter on it. Sorry. Conclave Mentor gives us extra +1/+1 counters on it. You get one or more, you get that many +1, so yeah, makes things a little bit easier to chuck around the damage with Shalai and Hallar. I'm playing a red deck, Dockside's in. Yeah, pass from here. Incubation Druid, just for a bit more ramp, and we can adapt it. Get a load of +1/+1 counters on it, which, in theory, should give us a Lightning Bolt occasionally. 5 mana. Expensive, but, get your 3 mana back. Luminarch Expirant seemed like a no-brainer in this deck to me. You're going to put a +1/+1 counter on something at the beginning of each upkeep, which means you're going to get to ping something every turn as long as this survives. Sylvan Carotid just gives a bit of ramp that's hexproof and can't be targeted. Abzan Falconer makes sure our creatures with +1/+1 counters on them have flying. Tusker Captain gives them all trample, if I remember. Yep, there you go. Another one that I quite liked from the new set, it's got the second of the new abilities, is Backup. This is Voldaren 3 Thrill Seeker. 1/1 for 2 in red, which isn't great, but it has the ability of backup too. So when it comes into play, you get to put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature, and it gains the following ability until the end of turn. And it's 1, sacrifice this creature, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Now, you can put it on something to shoot someone. If you've got someone down low enough, it might give you the win condition you need just to ping them off the board. If you've got 1 spare mana, or you could just keep building up the +1/+1 counters on the Thrill Seeker and eventually sacrifice it to do it that way. But see what happens. Backup seems like quite a good ability for this sort of thing. Admittedly, I'm still looking through spoilers, so I'll probably miss some of the really good backup cards. I'm just picking out the ones I like the look of, and this is one of them. Anyway, Abzan Battle Priest gives all the +1/+1 counters lifelink. And then Defiler of Instinct. I like the Defilers. They don't see much play, but I do like them. So this one is the red one, and whenever you cast a red permanent spell, it pings something. That's fine, can cope with that. Filigree of a Vector is another new card coming through from March of the Machines. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of any number of target creatures, and a charge counter on any number of target artifacts. So it's a nice way of making sure Shalal's in play. You can play this, put +1/+1s on all your creatures, and get all those nice little ping triggers. Again, another way. But the other thing is you can pay 1, sacrifice another artifact, and proliferate. So at the end of the day, if things go really pear-shaped, you can make all these and then use the Filigree Vector to sacrifice them all off, to proliferate and put all those extra +1/+1 counters on everything and trigger Shalal even more. So hopefully it works like that. Hallar and Ilana, the partners, are in because they put in +1/+1 counters at the beginning of combat on each turn equal to their power to a creature. Lenore, Autumn Sovereign, puts a +1/+1 on a creature at the beginning of beginning of combat, and then you get to draw a card if you've got 3 creatures with different powers. Long Shot Squad gives everything reach with a +1/+1 counter, and Uben Muldal Ancestor does the whole landfall, chucking +1/+1 counters around. At the beginning of the combat in your turn, you can make it you can make 1 land, an XX elemental creature with trample, and haste until the end of the turn, where X is Obadon's power. It's still a land. So if you've got some extra +1/+1s on Oban, you can make it a 5/5, 6/6 maybe. So. But we've all seen this before in the pre-con deck, so it's not that surprising. Rampant Rejuvenator automatically comes in with the +1/+1 counters and gives us a way to search some land out. The other version of Shalal's in this deck as well, just to make sure we've got hexproof and our creatures have. And then if we've got a load of spare mana kicking around, a whole load of +1/+1 counters could come out. Ao the Dawn Sky, when it dies, you get to chuck 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature, which seems like a reasonable plan. And Archangel of Thune, lifelink, when you gain life, put some +1/+1 counters around. Makes life interesting. Defiler of Faith's in as well, just so we can get the creatures into play by paying the mana. And Defiler of Vigor puts +1/+1 counters on everything. Only on green ones though, so don't forget the red, the green and the white Defilers only trigger the colours. The creatures of their respective colour, or the permanents of the respective colour, so be aware of it. But, if you can cast a load of green spells with Defiler of Vigor in play, and you get to chuck a whole load of +1/+1 counters around. Juniper Order Ranger is something I think people forget about when they're looking at +1/+1 decks. This one's nice because you get counters on the creature and counters on the Ranger itself. Verdurous Gillhulk chucks 4, so basically can char something, I think it was, a 4 damage like instant. Or, couple of shocks or 4 pings if we need it, so depending how you distribute those +1/+1s. Scale Lord, whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are placed on another creature you control, you get to put +1/+1 on here, so he doubles up your ping ability. And Vigor. I was hoping everyone would trigger Vigor with Shalai and Hallar. If damage will be dealt to a creature you control other than Vigor, prevent that damage and put a +1/+1 counter on it for each damage prevented that way. Things get really nasty with this and Shalal in play very, very quickly. And then finally, to finish off the creature count, don't like this particular artwork. I didn't select the correct artwork when I did the decks, but Vorinclick's Monstrous Raider. If you would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many. Yeah, okay then. It turns all your pings into shocks, and all your shocks into chars if you're lucky. So yeah, bear it in mind, and slows down our opponent getting counters as well on things. Basri Ket and Basri Devoted Paladin are only here because they do, for both of their +1s, let you put on +1/+1 counters. It is possible that Basri Ket, you can do the -2 at some stage and get a whole load of 1/1 soldier tokens, which might help with one of the cards we've got coming up. Anyway, spell-wise, Collective Void to help the ramp, Path to Exile to remove something we don't like. First day of class, yeah, we're not going to learn anything outside of this, I know that. But, if we've got a lot of mana floating around with a whole load of creatures in our hand, first day of class isn't the worst thing in the world. Everything comes into play with a +1/+1 and they get haste. Seems like a good plan to me. Rampant growth with a little bit of ramp. 3 visits to go and find the forest cards that we've got in the deck. Chaos Warp to hopefully bounce something out and give them something useless. Kodoma's Reach is in as well, just for a bit more ramp to get the basic lands out. Unbreakable Formation is great if you play it in your main phase. Load of creatures in play, you can make them all indestructible until the end of turn, and put all +1/+1 counters on them, and Vigilance if you do it in your main phase. And obviously you can save your creatures if someone goes to Wrath of God, Chain of Blasphemous Axe, so on and so forth. So there is a reason we have this card in the deck, because obviously we've got Chain Reaction. Semester's End is a nice little instant trick. Exile everything, and at the beginning of the next end step, return each of them to the battlefield under their owner's control. Planeswalkers come back with an extra +1+ extra loyalty counter, but all the creatures come back in with +1/+1 counters on them. Lots and lots of triggers. Doomscar and Sunfall. Doomscar is just basically to give us a little bit of extra Wrath effect, and Sunfall's another one of the new cards, which I think is going to be one of the Wraths going forward, because you exile all creatures for 5 mana. Like that plan, no issue with that at all. But then you get to Incubate X, where X is the number of creatures exiled this way. Create an incubator token with X +1/+1 counters on it. So you could end up, if you exile the entire board, yes, it'd probably get bounced, but you could end up with like a 13/13, 14/14 creature once you transform it. So it's interesting, but the exile side of it's really nice, is why I've played it. We've also got Farewell in the deck. Once my computer catches up with me. No, it's not going to show us Farewell, but you all know what it does. Exile whichever ones you want to exile. Titania's Command does the whole couple of bear tokens if we need to, but a whole load of +1/+1 counters. But you can pick one of the other 3 modes, but the +1/+1 counter is the one we're really interested in. And then Blasphemous Act, a little bit more board control for us. Artifacts I've mentioned in Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and the Great Henge. Great Henge is nice, obviously it gets the +1/+1 counter. Shalai means it gets pinged every time you cast creatures, that's cool. And then some enchantments. Authority of Consuls gives us a life, which really helps if we have the Archangel of Thune in play. Cleric class, gain life, gain that much +1. Hopefully you can go to the stage 2 very quickly, so you get the +1/+1 counters, hence why it's here. It's a +1/+1 counter deck. You didn't expect me not to have Hardened Scales in here, did you? Let's all get extra +1/+1 counters, which is more damage. Kumo Faces of Kazan is just in so we can do the stage 2. It won't show up on here because of how the wonderful thing works. But it's a saga. And stage 1 is it pings one person. Stage 2 is when you play a creature that turn, you get to put, it comes into play with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and then it flips into a 2/2 with haste, if I remember, that says whenever a creature dies this turn, or an opponent's creature dies, it gets exiled instead of going to the graveyard. But it's the second level we're interested in with the extra +1/+1 counter. Durable Handicraft comes through as well. Yes, we have to pay mana to do it, but paying 6 and sacrificing it and putting some +1/+1 counters on each creature we control could give us the win quite happily. Growing Rights, just for a little bit of ramp. It's not showing up the double-sided cards for some reason today. I don't know why. You all know what it does. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put a creature card in your hand. Then if you control 4 or more creatures, if my memory serves correctly, it flips into basically Gaia's Cradle. Felidar Retreat chucks around +1/+1 counters. Guardian Project to give us some draw. Leyline of Abundance, hopefully we can start with it in play without paying for it, but 8 mana for some +1/+1s, and our ramp creatures do have to get an extra green mana when we tap them. Yeah, another standout in any +1/+1 deck has got to be Cathar's Crusade. When a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. It's going to be stupid with Shalal. I would imagine this is going to shoot up in price. I mean, it's 0.01 of a tick at the moment. I might go and pick up some more just to make sure I can do it. Doubling Season gives us extra counters, obviously. Comes into play, put twice that many counters on it. So, yep, makes sense to me. And then Civil Unrest. Non-token creatures you control have riot, so they can enter the battlefield with a choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. This is obviously one of the new cards. I like the idea of them coming in with a +1/+1, or if I really need them to have haste, we can give them haste, but soon have the counters. And it says, if a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. Makes your cards with all the +1/+1 counters on it ridiculously strong to deal with, and this is a great enchantment. I suspect this is going to be quite an expensive enchantment, even though it is in one of the new commander decks, so it might be worth picking up that commander deck. The rest of it, just a whole load of lands. Arid Messer, the usual selection of red, green and white jewels, including my standard exotic Orchard, Fable, Passage, Field of the Dead that you've seen a lot of now, I'm sure. Plateaus in as well, so you can, and Yavimar, Temple of the False God, and Reliquary Tower should be here somewhere. So the usual selection. Obviously, tabletop cost is really expensive. You can drop some of the more expensive cards out. I am looking at you, Plateau. I'm looking at you, Savannah. That takes the price down quite significantly, very quickly. Doubling Season, and the Great Henge is really shot in price for some reason. But yeah, bear that in mind. Obviously, most of the stuff you see from me is on MTGO. So that's it. That is my little take on Shalai and Hallar. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you're going to hit the like button. If I've missed anything you think there should be in the deck, please let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully you have hit the subscribe button now, and hit the little bell icon so you get the alerts when the new videos come up every day. And I'll be back very soon with another video. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you soon. Bye.